Hi, welcome to my channel, KwilterKris. My name's Kristen, and today we're finishing up the Dragon Fruit Block of the Month, Block 2. We end up doing these blocks, and then we put them together, as you can see. Thanks so much for watching. Dragon Fruit Block of the Month, Month 2. We have 4 different blocks to make, but we need to make 4 of each for a total of 16 blocks. We have 2 economy blocks, that's the little bit more complicated here, and 2 square of the square. These are the square within the square, and these are the economy blocks. I already have mine cut out, as you can see here, and we're going to paper piece these. This is a beautiful block of the month. I know some people are a little concerned because it's paper piece, but I know that you can do this. So today, I'm going to sew along making these blocks, and I hope you'll join me. Thanks so much. So the first blocks we're going to do today are the square and the squares, these. And we're going to do those first because I think they're the easiest and the most straightforward. So, but if you have any questions, I'd love to hear it in the comments. So these are our blocks cut out. They're the square and the square. They are paper pieced, and we're going to stitch these both together. They're both basically the same block with the same background, just the inside's different. So when you paper piece, there's the picture on the front, but you put your fabric on the back. And the whole purpose of paper piecing is to make sure that your blocks are super accurate. So when you're working with this paper, it's pretty much a thin paper, and you can, when you turn it over and you hold it up to the light, you can see the lines through it, and that's exactly what we want. And I just want to say, there's no quilt police here. I'm showing you how I do this, but please feel free to tell about how you do it and share any tips or tricks you have. So what I'm going to use today is my paper piecing, my cutout pieces. I'm going to use a fabric glue stick. This is mine by Sewline. It does get kind of gunky. You can just wash it off. And these are what the refills look like. You can get these at many quilt stores and online. Amazon has them as well. My handy dandy seam ripper and stiletto. A good pair of scissors, just in case. And a rotary cutter. I'm also going to use the add a quarter ruler. This is the shorter one. Mine is yellow. I think Fat Quarter Shop has pink ones. I've had mine for a while. You do not have to use this. You can use any of your acrylic rulers that fit on your paper. Totally fine. I use those all the time. So what we're going to do is we're going to take the paper and we're going to turn it over. And we have our fabric here. And when we're looking, we can see the lines, and we get a pretty good idea of where it needs to go. And then I'm going to glue it on with my glue stick. I'm going to glue it onto the paper, just a little. The glue will not gum up your machine. It dries really fast, and you can reposition it if you get it in the wrong place. So I'm going to glue it on this side and sew it on this side. After we do that, then we'll sew the sides and then we'll trim it up. It's a super easy process. So here's my paper, and I can see the lines underneath. So I keep an eye on it, I am just going to put glue right near that line, so I know. And then I continue to hold it up like this, so I can see where that is. And I just put a little smear of glue, no biggie. Because I'm going to stitch this on. It's not going to stay glued. So I'm going to put this on in about the right spot. I'm going to look at the back and I can see my edge here. And the good thing about paper piecing is you do not have to cut the fabric out exactly. As long as it extends past those lines, you're good. So now we're going to sew this on right along here. Now, you don't have to do it that way. You can glue this on and you can immediately go and add the number 2 piece, and you don't have to stitch all around. I'm going to do it anyway. I will also say that if your thread does not match your fabric exactly, it might show through in the finished product. I'm okay with that. I don't think anyone is ever looking that closely. This isn't a quilt I'm going to take to a show, but I wanted to warn you just in case. Okay, let's sew it on. Now I'm going to sew around. Now, the first time I did this, I did it incorrectly. I sewed the lines, if you can see, the lines go up here. Don't sew on those lines because it'll be harder for you later. You just want to sew on the lines for the square. I'll show you. So we've gotten that sewn all the way around, and you can see this here. We'll clip our threads and then we'll go to the next step. Okay, so we're doing the add a quarter ruler, and we have piece 2 and piece 3, piece 4 and 5. So we'll do piece 2 and 3, we'll iron or finger press it down, then we do 4 and 5. So the first thing is to take this, and on this ruler, you can tell it has a really thin spot here. Now, you can use a regular acrylic ruler. This just makes it a little bit easier. It's a fun tool. Okay, you line this up with this straight line here, the line that you stitched. You line it up right there, and you bend the fabric back. And you fold it down. Now, if you sewed to these little corners here, it's fine. You would just have to rip out here to this corner. That's what I had to do with my other one. Okay, so this is the paper's bent back. Then this ruler has this square right here, and it has this little lip. You put it upside down on your paper and it kind of locks in, see? And then you cut over, and that gives you your 1/4 of an inch. I'm going to do that on the number 3 side as well. Right here, we fold this over, turn this upside down, lock it up against the fabric, and cut that off. Now we take our 2 triangles, toss that aside. You have your 2 sides here. Now you can glue this down if you want. I find I don't have as much trouble because it extends out. So when I flip it over, I can just hold it there. And then we're going to sew it on this line. I have number 3 here, but we'll do number 2 next. You can do it in order or not. And again, so I just sewed on this side. I left this open. If you do accidentally sew on that, you'll just want to rip it out so you can bend that back when you go to trim. Okay, we're going to do the second one here. Then trim your threads, flip it over, and then you can finger press this down. I'm going to take mine to the iron, whichever you prefer, and then I'll show you the others. Okay, I gave mine a quick press. Now we're going to turn it over. We use our add a quarter ruler and our rotary. We line it up here on this line we stitched for the edge of the square, and we're going to pull it back right like that so that we expose our fabric. We bend this down we take our add a quarter ruler, flip it upside down so it can grip that paper, and then we cut off the excess. And that one's done. And now we do that for number 5 as well. Line it up, flip the paper, crease it, pull out the ruler, crease it down, flip our ruler over, take our rotary, cut off the excess. All right, now we're ready to put our 2 triangles there. 1, 2. Okay, we turn it over. Here's piece 4. We lay this here, flip it over, and go to the sewing machine. Okay. Then we do the same here. Flip it over. Then we take this to the iron it open, and trim it up around this line. I have this one that I already finished, and you can see I trimmed. You can see my mistakes when I sewed on that, but I was able to rip it out and it came out perfect. So I'm going to do the lemon blocks and the mango blocks, which are the same block. Okay, next we're going to do the economy block. So I already have the pieces cut out, and we do it the same as we did the other one. There's just an extra step. So here we have the square in the middle. This is for that. And then we'll do these triangles and then these triangles. So I'll put the fabric on the back and sew around, and then I'll come back and show it to you. And we'll go to the next step.
Okay, so we've sewn on the square in the middle, and now we're going to do piece 2 and 3. And we do that with these right here. Okay, but first we do the fold so that we can cut the excess and reduce the bulk. And we have the add a quarter ruler here. We line it up with where we stitched the square on. We bend it over, press the paper, flip the ruler, and cut. And you can do that for piece 2 and 3. And this is optional, you don't have to cut the fold. But now we're going to sew these pieces on, and then we'll take them to the iron. So we just put it here, lining up the edges, flip it over, and we're going to sew along the stitch line.
And then we do that again for this side. So now it's not exact, but we did sew it on the line, so it'll be fine. So now we iron these open, and then we'll do the other side. So we have our first set of triangles sewn on. So now we need to trim up the edges and sew on the other part. So it's 4 and 5, they're exactly the same. We're gonna fold. And flip over. Okay, so it should look something like this. And then we're going to put the other 2 triangles on, and then we'll press it, and we'll be ready for the next layer. Got that sewn on. We'll take this to the iron, or you can use a little roller, and then we'll do the next step. So we've gotten these on here. They might look a little wonky, but that's okay because we're going to trim them up and sew the other pieces, and that's the whole thing about paper piecing. It'll come out perfect. So there's 2 different ones of these blocks that we're working on. This one's called the kiwi block, and this one's called the pear block. So I just wanted you to see that in case you wanted to see how it looked in progress. So now we're going to do these that go on these corners. So we're going to flip this over. So we're working on, it has this with 7 and 8, or I'm sorry, 6 and 7 and 8 and 9. So we're going to work on 6 and 7. You can see right here. And we're going to just keep doing that how we've been doing that. So we have our handy dandy ruler here. And we're going to line this up here. Fold this over. Cut off the excess. Turn it around. Do 7. Trim off the excess. Okay, so now it looks like that. And we're going to take one of each of these and sew them on. So we have 6 here. We're going to put that on here. It's supposed to be bigger than the paper. That's totally fine. And we're going to sew this on. We're going to start in this corner right here where all these lines meet. We're going to start in that corner. And it will look like this. And then we'll take it and press it, or you can use one of those little rollers. And then we do the other side. Okay, so we've gotten this all ironed right here. So now we're going to bend these 2 back and trim them up, and then we'll sew the other sides on. After we do that, we'll iron it again, and then we'll trim it up on this line. When I get all of these done, I do have the pattern to put together last month and this month. So we'll get started on this. So same as always, you line it up with the line, fold the paper, flip this over. Okay, and we do it over here as well. Okay, and so that's what it looks like, and then we just put the last triangles on. Don't worry that this is a little wonky and uneven. That won't matter, because after we sew on the triangles and trim it up, it will be all even and it will look perfect. Okay, so we've gotten that all completed. We'll get this ironed and I'll come back and show you how we trim it up. Okay, so we finished piecing our block. It looks a little wonky because it's bigger than the paper. So we're going to trim it. There's this line and this line. It's the outside line that we trim it to. That gives us our seam allowance. So this is a 4.5 inch square. I have this ruler. So it's just a tad bigger, honestly. So I end up scooting it over just a little bit as I do it, and I have this rotating cutting mat, and I will trim this up. So it's all trimmed up and it looks perfect. So now at this point, you can take off the paper if you would like, totally fine. Or you can sew these blocks together with the paper. So I'm going to trim my other blocks, and then I'll come back and I'll show you how I'm going to put them together. Okay, so I have finished making all the blocks for block 1 and block 2, and they've all been trimmed, but they still have their paper on it. So I'm going to leave the paper on for now, but if you want to take the paper off, totally fine. So under the month 2 in the block of the month in the pattern book, it does show how to put them together. There's 9 put together in each square, and we make 4 of those. That uses 36 blocks, and that's how many we have. So I'm going to put this together, and then I'll show you the final result. Okay, so I finished the blocks. They're all put together. You can see the other 3 there. I still have the paper on. I have ironed it with the seams open. And yeah, I'm really happy about this. I think it looks great. Thanks so much for watching. Bye-bye.